Now tell me one thing. Now this is my question for all the social entrepreneurs. I mean, you are a social entrepreneur, you work for humanity, you work for society.
Yes.
Because probably you are well healed. You have your basic needs covered, your food, shelter, clothing, etc. taken care of. Should you not be in this value chain or in this chain, and should you be at the lower strata of the pyramid?
Right.
Would you have still done this?
I would still have done this, and I think also we see all of the people who are social entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs within our organization, and time after time, when there's been no resources, they have just kept on. I'll tell you one story. That a number of years ago, as it goes with grant cycles, we had a massive funding crisis. This is years ago. And I remember, contacting, I was myself like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? And I came to the point where I had to actually tell people who are doing this amazingly courageous work of defending people who have no voice and protecting them, being their only hope. I had to go and talk to people and say, hey, we have no more support for you. So I remember like one particular example, a couple of particular examples. One is Ajay Verma in India, who for years we have not given him any actual financial support. We support him with materials, we work with him, we strategize with him, we've given him absolutely no financial support, and yet he has continued to protect the lives of hundreds and hundreds of people, by himself and with his team of volunteers.
So, when you intend to eradicate torture by 21st century,
Yes.
the question is, how would you investigate hardline criminals?
Right.
Criminals who wage war of terror against the state,
Yes.
of criminals who crime against women or crime against children. How do you investigate them? Serious and heinous crimes.
Okay, so two things. The first thing is, going back to the mission of our organization.
Correct.
Which is that we are not looking necessarily at, political prisoners or not political, but like terrorists and whatnot. We're
Correct.
looking at like everyday people
Correct.
who do not have access to a lawyer early on and so are tortured
Correct.
for it. The next thing is that there is some irony to the crazy things that have happened, for instance, in Guantanamo base.
Correct.
Because it's been proven over and over again
Yeah.
that there are many ways to investigate crimes, which is why it's illegal in many countries, and that actually tortured confessions are not reliable and are probably the worst ways to do it.
Confessions are reliable, but torture. So torture is just a tool to get confessions, right? But confessions are still important.
No, tortured confessions that come out of torture are usually not reliable, right?
Correct.
I mean, because people will say anything. And the
Correct.
irony of the situation is that for a very, I think people are always, concerned about the ticking bomb, right? You
Correct,
say
correct.
there's a bomb, it's ticking, and you got to torture the guy to kill. I'm going to just say most of those people that are like, have the information, they're not the ones who are going to give you the information anyway. They've been trained to like kill themselves or, bite their tongues off or do something. I mean, that sounds strange, but they're not the ones that are necessarily the ones that we're focused on. And the sort of the sad thing is because there's such an obsession about what about the few that we need to torture because of this period of time, that there are just hundreds of thousands of people who are tortured because we're thinking about what about these guys. So the focus of our organization really is that we're looking at the people who are picked up and who are tortured because it's the cheapest form. And it's a very sad irony that oftentimes we're looking at democracy and we think, okay, when we have a new leader, everything's going to be great. And what we've seen in so many countries is that democracy comes, and maybe for a certain percent of the population, like the middle class and the upper class, due process rights become protected. But for the poorest of the poor, you talk to them and they say, it's the same. They're picked up by the police for either something that's little or nothing at all. And their due process rights are continuously violated. And so that's why we are looking at, not taking care of one person or 5 people or 10 people, but really working at system change, really working to ensure that every person has the protection of a lawyer. We're not saying this at all. If you're guilty, you should be in jail. You should be in prison. We don't want guilty people walking around. But the saddest irony is that you have so many people who are in prison and they don't have a lawyer. I mean, so the first biggest problem is that many people don't have a lawyer. And I'll say now, and I do not take this badly because you're from India. This happens in countries throughout the world. But I remember that when I first went to India, many of the lawyers were celebrating. They were like, "Oh, we're so happy." And I said, "Why are you so happy?" And they said, "Oh, because this guy just got out of prison. He's 40 years old, and he got out, and so that's great. He was innocent. That sounds wonderful." Here's what's not wonderful: is when you look at the underlying facts, right? And the underlying factor is that he went in when he was 14. They found him innocent at 17, and then they lost him and found him again when he was 40. Now, the problem with this is that this happens in countries throughout the world.
Correct.
That people are lost in the system. And it's super ironic and ridiculous because when you look at it, you look at Microsoft. Microsoft will brag to you. I meet wonderful people and they say, we can crack a widget this big in our entire system globally. We start with the widget and we know where it goes. Now, how is it that we are able to not lose widgets, but we lose human beings in real places? So one place is we lose people, right? The second is that even if we don't lose them, if they don't have access to a lawyer, number two, a lot of people are immediately tortured, and it's again a sad reality that even though the laws are on the books, if you have the money for a lawyer, you have the protection of a lawyer. If you don't, oftentimes the police will start breaking your fingers immediately because it's the cheapest form of investigation. It's just not fair.
Correct. Now, 93 or 97 or 95?
93.
93 countries. 93 countries.
I know you're good at math.
But that's the number I borrowed from your talk. So 93 countries have legal systems in place which do not allow torture.
Right.
Now these are the countries which evade their legal systems, go out of their country and conduct the same torture.
Yeah, bad.
Guantanamo Bay is the classic example. How do you explain that?
No, it's bad. It's wrong. It shouldn't happen. It absolutely shouldn't happen. You don't evade things by going to another country and do other terrible things. You just it's
but they had a justification about that, right? They do not want.
It is, but it's just hypocritical. Right, and we want to move towards protection. We want to move towards love, and in that we have to not be hypocritical. We have to stand by our values because it's what we believe.
Now, what happens in cases where this understaffed police, per capita policing is less, right? This is probably the only tool or only method to get confessions. Now, if motive, witness, evidence and confession were important for conviction, and confession was as important as everything else, then this is the only tool they have, right? When they are understaffed, where they have so many cases, can't solve it, and they are for sure that this is a criminal. He is a criminal, he or she is a criminal, and must be convicted. In that scenario, what happens?
Okay, so there's two things. Number one, we don't know that it's a tool, but is an effective tool, is the point, right? Will they get the correct information?
Correct.
Now, the fact that they know that he's a criminal means they have other evidence somewhere, right?
Correct.
And so we need to use the other evidence, because by saying, therefore we should be able to use investigative torture because we need it for this person, we're then condemning to torture so many other people for it. Each of you have an important role. That each of you has a special gift.
Correct.
Because we are created that way. To be born into the world is to be born into the heroic journey.
Correct.
And so whatever gift you have, you will have a weakness and you will have a gift. Embrace your weakness, embrace your gift, and know that you shouldn't compare yourself to anybody, because each of you is unique. And bring that gift into this world to change the world and to make a difference, because your presence matters. Celebrating life is to be exactly where you are in the present moment, and
In
I
the
think
now.
he has in the now, and to recognize that life is a gift for us, and that we always have a choice in terms of how we see things, whether we choose love or whether we choose fear. And choose love, because it is a celebration of life.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, thank you,
It's such a pleasure to see you here.
thank you.
And thank you for letting us in. And the lovely dinner yesterday.
Thank you for coming to dinner. Thank you. I mean, I think it's inspiring because, like as I said, we each do what we can do.
Yeah.
And meeting you, thank you for spreading the word about what we do. And
course.
we look forward to all of the different, people who can watch this and think
Correct.
about it. And www.ibj.org, that's our website, International Bridges of Justice. Things will change as we each join in.